So for Amplify Flodax, for DKS and his duo, Bad Sniper, they'll definitely be trying to close this one out and really look to make something of this qualifier as best as possible, because if next time you roll around here you have to deal with Benji and Savage off spawn, it's not going to be great whatsoever.
Yeah, I'm glad you bring that up too, because identity theft is a big thing in the FNCS, right? Like, it's just how it works. A team doesn't qualify. You should take exactly maybe even how they play, right? Because, you know, it's good teams that have very set strats that are easy sometimes to replicate. And then at the same time, if you feel good with it, that next round, you might find an extra duo who's landing at your spot.
Exactly. And so that's why sometimes you got to roll up and really, you know, hit the bods right before the session. Say, oh, where do they land? What do they claim? See what we can do. We're seeing that with a couple of the spots around the map as well. The DKS and Bad Sniper, they're a team who have consistently landed tilted this season. They've had their struggles here, specifically against Benji and Savage. But this will be an opportunity now for them to get top 8, qualify through. I like tilted this season, right? Really nice POI. I think it's interesting. The analysts at the beginning of the show talked about teams rotating in. What I've found is, depending on zones and certain zones, what you have is that oftentimes the teams around won't actually rotate into tilted, right? Because, you know, there are other objectives sort of around the map that they are more geared towards. So I think this is one of those zones as well where you won't see the teams rotating into tilted. It means you have more time to do whatever you have to do there. But for the meantime, I don't think those guys are going to be fighting it out.
No, that's literally exactly what I actually wanted to say. I don't even know what to say now. That's the biggest difference between Tilted from last chapter to now. It used to just be like the oasis, right? That's where you could big up a lot of the mats you might not have. That's where you can get a little bit of refarming, some looting done as well, because not many people clear it out too much. But yeah, you're right. Rocky reels, lots of chest lit around hills. At the same time, you have the sanctuary to dip into if you're that far away. Covert Cavern might have a few surge tags, some mountains you want to get on. Tilted is more so like a pit stop now, more so than that central hub you want to roll into. And Teak, Cammy, they're taking advantage of that right now. They're kind of teetered off on one of the outsides, looking in. They have a chance to block off basically almost all south rotations if Teak's fast enough on the shot. I think Cammy right now is slightly split as well. I love these split kind of bases. Well, what's the advantage of having two teammates, you know, not side by side, but slightly further away on two different towers?
Well, I think this is just an example of supreme understanding of the map and how teams will react to certain zones. They understand that they ain't going to have to really deal with anybody in between them, and so they're trying to cover as much area as possible in order to try find them surge tags. You'll see Teak here knows there's going to be players in tilted looking to try hit some shots. And as Cammy, you know, did what he had to do elsewhere, I think now they will start to group up. 2 minds better than 1 in this instance, but yeah, looking to cover as much ground as possible. You don't always need to be side by side, as long as you have an understanding of where the players on the map are going to be.
And a lot of the time, this type of action is something that people might not even want to watch, right? There might be like, yo, why is Teak camping, in a sense? That's not exactly what's going down there. You see a lot of people on mountains, a lot of people just waiting in these spots. There's a lot going on here. Getting to these spots, trying to figure that out. How did that happen? How much control do Tayson and Thomas have? That's a big part of it, right? At the same time, why are they doing this? They just need to get some damage done. They need to get some tags up for Surge. Now, what Surge is, if this is your first time kind of watching the broadcast, you know, rolling in and tuning in, you want to make sure you're ahead of damage, depending on what everyone else is doing, and it all kind of also revolves around, this is the worst I've actually explained Surge in my life, how many players are alive as well. So if there's more than 70 players, the server's like, wow, need to thin it down. It'll take away the people with the least damage. You want to be on top of that damage. You want to be on top of the map right now too. Lumberyard is where everyone needs to go. We were talking about, you know, Teak and Cammy, their spot, their base looks so good. They got a big mission now to get all the way towards the top.
Yeah, and I think for a team like Tayson, you saw where he was positioned up above Covert Canyon, right? That's going to be great for him in terms of surge tags, because the whole south of the map is going to have to rotate up towards the north. But doing reason, the winners of that first game, you can see how they're going to be traversing the zone now, moving up north themselves, looking for a position. Looking good, right? 12 peppers is really nice to have in terms of endgame movement. What isn't great is running into and Queasy there. So, gonna have to find a different pathway. But look, you can see now, they're just looking for their position. They're looking for a place where they can set up comfortably. Kiriachi and Stormy Right gonna try and make this as uncomfortable for them as possible, but when you're hitting shots like that from reason, you can make any team back off of you. Really nicely done. Gets shot in the back, but it's gonna be all right because they've got some shields, some minis, and the chug splashes, the standard, what you wanna really be carrying at this level. And again, like I said, 12 peppers is gonna be really nice for them endgame in terms of being able to get those rotations. So this is setting up to be a nice little game for them, as long as they can sort of keep it going until the end game.
They got the speed, they have all the resources, and I'm always giggly watching Reason, like 2 times right there. First, he's taking the shots on the Stormy right, gets shot in the back, doesn't even look behind him to build. I'm pretty sure the person behind him stopped shooting because he'd expect Reason to turn around and build, didn't want to waste the ammo. Reason kept shooting Stormy right. This man is an absolute psycho, like, who keeps shooting? And then he just edits to a pyramid that's already edited, the Stormy could have shot back with. I mean, you know on his mind is just one thing, he just wants the elims. He wants to turn on, put down that damage.
And like you explained earlier, right? He wants to search, right? And you can see now that's what they're doing. They're looking at any team that is maybe going to be unaware, you know, try to catch them out with their pants down, try to see if they can do any liquid damage, right? All the tags help, right? Every little helps in that sense. And so even if it is just a couple shots that you're able to land on someone, that goes a long way.
Yeah, and that's basically kind of just categorizing what you guys will be watching majority of the time. You're looking on broadcast, you're looking at the game. Early game, very simple. It's all about winning your drop spot, surviving, getting loot, getting shields. We know that. It doesn't really change from comp to casual, right? And then past that, end game, it also doesn't really change. It's all about victory royale. Just try to live as long as you can and try to win the game. Mid game is where the biggest difference is, and just, you know, hopping on with the friends and playing whatever you want to play. And competitive, you want to be looking for surge, you want to be looking for positions. Be inside the zone and be dealing damage while you move around. That is the name of the game.
And this is an example of good position here. You see how Gucira and Stormy right are quite elevated in comparison to the rest of their opponents up on this hill that they're on. That means they have more options. They look around 360. They can see a lot more than their opponents can see, which means there are more opportunities to get themselves some surge tags. You can see Gucira 150 above isn't ideal. They want to be a bit higher than that, and so you can see he's just constantly just going to be looking for where he can see his players, looking at those stairs, seeing if he can catch a player out behind these trees, players rotating in from the back. And that taxi is not going to be a comfortable place to be. A lot of players now in the lobby focusing their attention on it, and they're actually just going to blow it up completely. No taxi for you.
You know what it's like when you're that player, like in the taxi? It's like, imagine, you know that mini game like you see sometimes in newspapers? Man, I'm old. It's like you gotta find the difference between 2 different pictures, right? And like you're really scrutinizing, looking for it. And anytime you see a difference, you're like, ooh, right there. Imagine every player doing that, but it's anything that moves on the island in front of you, right? So that taxi going in is like a big red circle on one picture, and it's not there on the other. Everyone's gonna focus it. It's gonna be bad. I'm surprised it even lasted that long.
Yeah, got taken and dealt with pretty quickly. Can't believe you think we read newspapers anymore, mate.
Do they exist still?
Like that. Yeah, I'm sure they do somewhere. I'm sure there'll be people DMing us on Twitter. We still read newspapers, by the way.
Oh.
Floki and Clemendo below on Surge, and this is where desperation starts to kick in. They already have some really tough times already in this game, sorry, off spawn, but they were able to recoup. But this is the problem now that they're going to deal with. You can see they're moving their way over to these teams. They want to force a box fight. They want to force any sort of engagement to try and get the surge, but a little too late. They will go down. Well, Clement will go down at the least, sorry. Floki remains up, but it's not looking too good for him either.
Count to 10. Count to 3, actually. There we go. Floki's gone for now. It's tough when Surge is there. And I was trying to stress this earlier on now, so we don't have to repeat it later when the games get intense and it's all about the points. That is literally what everyone is just playing right now. It's just trying to find the damage and trying not to get damaged. It sounds so basic, but that's kind of just the name of the game. And it's going to be Thomas HD that actually picks up the men, which is going to be huge. You give that man a refresh at any point in the game. You were talking about 11. Give him an inch, he takes it a mile. You give him 100 mats, he makes it look like 400. It's insane. But what else have we missed so far inside the game? Who took a few shots here and there? We have a few replays to see exactly what the situation is.
Take a look here. Rising and Phoenix, our first place team, taking some players out. You love to see it, and of course, Seeking Kami in 4th place when they took out Floki right there. And those are really nice finds in terms of they go a long way in that battle for Storm Surge. You can see both of those teams were above on Surge. And that means that they have a bit more freedom in terms of moving forward, how they can approach the game. Whereas those teams who are struggling on Surge, you know, they're constantly thinking, how can we get some damage? How can we look for some damage, get some tags? It's a bit of extra pressure, to say the least.
Absolutely. You talk about pressure and struggle. I also think about a player whose name was just in the feed, Bad Sniper. I feel like I bullied him a bit too much last season, but like it just feels like this man, no matter what POI he was on, was struggling so much in seasons before. Now it actually looks like, you know, in duos, in a format where there's a little bit more, you know, organized chaos. You can kind of sift through it. He's having a little bit of an easier time. In the replays, we'll see Futric with Toos down right now, going for a big shot. That fight must have lasted a long time. I've even been through Surge. You never really see an 8 damage tag ending a fight.
Yeah, that must have been a really long, drawn-out one. These things can happen, but ultimately only one team will come out on top. As you can see, a lot of teams clustered here towards Logjam. Thomas has his eyes set on some players that seem to still be in zone. He's very suspicious. You can see he won't take his eyes off it, and he knows they are going to pad, and once the pad comes out, they got to open the edits and look for those angles. I think Thomas just missed a window of opportunity there to hit it. Wasn't as prepared. But again, that's what we're talking about, right? Players constantly looking for these moments of opportunity.
Everyone's based up 2 right now. Talk to me about differing priorities, Levin, in this type of zone. The one that is the most hated for some few players, the most loved for a lot of people who are watching. When there's big mountains in the way, how does that change the game plan for a lot of players?
I think the big thing initially is you want to be on one of them mountains, right?
Yeah.
You know, you want to be any sort of maximum elevation. You want to be in a position of maximum opportunity. We'll call it that. But for the players who aren't, right, you want to find your way to get in. Make sure you cover as many angles as possible. You don't want those people above you to be able to even get a lick of damage onto you. Waste your shields. And you can see here, Ryzen and Phoenix have done a great job of positioning themselves somewhere where they have options. They can look at players who aren't in the zone yet and get some damage that way. But they also won't be in the line of fire for the teams above them, maybe, who are slightly high elevated.
And, you know, that position can change in just a second. Sometimes being on top of the mountain early, the zone goes off of it. And you're like, why? Why is this happening to me? Talking about Bat Sniper as well. 2 looks at the trades might have come through in a very nice way. DKS, although down, fully picked back up, and they're inside a box with a lot of loot. So I have to assume with the 5 eliminations they share, they definitely just won one of the fights. The most important thing, too, they're isolated. They can kind of think and figure out what's next. And they have a launch pad, too. Is that 2 pads? These guys are in one of the most perfect spots I've seen before an endgame starts.
Yeah, in terms of their loadout, this is brilliant, right? Of course, you know, they've got max materials, plenty of rotational movement items. From what was looking like a bit of a chaotic, messy game for them, actually doesn't look too bad now. Gonna use those spare mats, Bad Sniper, to create a bit of a tunnel on their way in. As we take a look at a replay here.
Look at the spray. This is gonna be picking up one of the elims on low ground. It gets so much messier down here. Has a gauntlet refresh as well. Oh, we got reactions too.
Oh, wow. Wow. Guys, this is what it means to people, right? You saw there from that reaction. This is what it means to people. Getting eliminations at this stage of their game in the FNCS qualifiers, it means a lot. It absolutely means a lot. That's wonderful right there.
I'm still wondering if that was the perspective of getting elimination or getting eliminated, because it could have gone either way. I think it might have been one getting elim, but...
Honestly, it does go either way, right? In terms of the levels of emotion in it.
Oh, it's insane. Right now, yeah, it's tough. You're going to be right outside kind of like placement overall where it starts to ramp up. You do not want to go down now. You're going to miss out on a lot of points. And this is where we get to see a POV, a reason of a deal, not actually, you know, shooting other players, but moving, deciding what to do next before the action starts. You'll notice they're kind of more trained on where people are rather than where they need to go. That's going to be huge, and that's what you see a lot of good players doing. They're trying to interrupt things first before the server starts to fly.
Yeah, this is tough. Players leaving it late to rotate, which typically you'd think is the right thing, but as you can see, Moshi gets taken out there. That leaves Kiko all alone. Reason of a deal doing a brilliant job to just gatekeep everybody, right? Just stopping those players who are behind them from having a chance to get in. Crucial damage being dealt, and you can see how easy it is for them, right? Knowing where players are, knowing that they aren't going to have a tough time. They can just run their way in. Maybe I've spoken too soon. A bit of pressure will be applied, but they should be able to deal with that.
You're absolutely correct. Fortnite is a two-way street when you're rotating, right? If you stop everyone behind you, it might not make everything in front of you a lot easier, but you have that insurance, you have that padding to be able to readjust, move back a box or two. You have more control that no one in the lobby has.
Yeah, and these guys are looking for control of the boxes as they try and maybe sneak out another elimination. Those players going to back off though, and Withdrew Reason will take that as a sign of fear. Have a bit of mercy for them. And honestly, they don't need to necessarily fight at this point. 90 bills on Reason isn't phenomenal by any means, but they've got peppers that they can use to stagger, save some materials. And honestly, we know that their technical ability is supreme. And so, if worse comes to worse, a bit of coordination from them shouldn't be too difficult to find themselves a bit of a refresh. As you see now, players moving towards that first moving zone. Everyone trying to get into that 6th zone. Ryzen Phoenix, who did so well last game, 55 below, scurrying their way into zone. Not an easy position to be in. You can see people have their eyes set on them. And so it's not an easy rotation by any means, but they're going to counter back with some Stinger Spray as well.
Keep moving forward. Still Surge an issue for a lot of teams. Both on the POV right now are going to be below, so they not only have to move, they have to still deal this damage. The end game checklist isn't active just yet. They still have to get through the last portion of how they play in that mid game. Cammy so high up in the sky, side by side with another completely different duo inside a box. Phoenix and Ryzen are going to be slightly lower though, seeing exactly what they can do. This is the perspective of kind of a first place team, and second it looks like they're close to that top 5 on the right side. So we'll see exactly who's going to go down and fall first. Reason actually going down inside the feed. Vidil gets that trade over to Karma. It looks like Forsten is going to clasp on past that. Phoenix, though, in a little bit of trouble as Surge starts to strike. They can't find a single shot. And Levin, these teams look like they're in so much trouble.
Yeah, this is really, really difficult. You're going to see desperation. They need to make a power play now, Cammy and Teak. They found so much loot, actually. A really nice refresh there, but it's not going to matter if they're still down on Surge. 37 players still up in this lobby. They need a couple to go down, but now they are above, as you can see. But that's not the same fortune for Ryzen and Phoenix. They are still struggling. And in the backside of the zone, things get really, really shaky. You can see now they're doing their best from the zone transition, but it's going to be hard. They need to find something, and soon, using some shields, trying to out-heal it for a moment. And that might actually pay off for them, as only one player now needs to go down in order for the Surge to stop ticking. We're down to 30. They are good. They remain, but they're on wood and they get dropped down. They need to be careful. They need to find a sense of balance, a sense of control. And this isn't good at all. Ryzen's gone down. Phoenix now going to have to solo clutch. And as a solo, with not much to work with, things will get very difficult very quickly. Queasy and Hen up on height. That's where they want to be. But it's all in the hands of Phoenix now if he wants any chance of keeping his team in first place.
He has that torch, he's still riding with it, but only 100 mats separate him from certain demise. Meanwhile, Vidil finally cleaned out, so the power push, the type of big playmaker is not going to be here towards this end game. It'll be a little bit more calmer, quiet. That's exactly what Phoenix wants for the moment. Meanwhile, Hen and Queasy all the way up top. They're trying to drop down as much pressure as possible. Phoenix actually goes for a spray and picks up a huge one on the pink. He's gonna have so much more to work with now. The entire pressure and tarp that pink had, plus his mats, plus a few heals, and that crucial med spray.
Yeah, he's doing really well here. As we said, on that backside of the zone, it means that there's so many players ahead of him, but using that med whisk to great use. Gonna just play the zone, and this is actually brilliant from him, realizing he can buy his team a bit more time, stay in the game as long as possible, just wait for players to slowly dwindle. Eventually there will come a time where he has to hit some crucial shots. He's not got a shotgun in his inventory, so he will have to build the SMG, and if he's not careful he might run into Rescard in just a moment. Oh dear, this gets really difficult. Yep, he will go down. Rescard will take him out. A valiant effort from VNX, but the first place team will go down. Cammy and Teak, though, still remain, and they've managed to find control. They dealt with their Surge issues, and they got to what they do best, sitting here on the mid ground with absolute control. Teak, you can see him as Cammy just tarps ahead, looking for opportunities to try get some eliminations. Hen and Queasy doing brilliantly on height. Cammy and Teak sitting fantastically in mid ground, and all the teams below them now going to be struggling to find any sort of hope in this game. Brilliant use there of the armored wall to add that extra layer of protection, and you can see they have their eyes set on all the players scurrying down below them.
This is just a simple lounge fest for Teak and Cammy all the way to first. They're just going to be able to stay alive still in second overall, though, right now. You can see it on the left side, and now the pressure is coming in. No time for the Guzzle Juice to be popped. Teak will go down momentarily. He's gone. Cammy, right before they can take that first place slot, they will be denied. Queasy up top. The pressure's too much. Orion from the other side is going to look for a big jump up, but he's denied too. And now we go for the classic 2-on-2, but Hens drops first. He's going to be in a 1v2. He's going to be almost taken out immediately, but no, jumps all the way back up, and he is safe. A lot of mats for Queasy and Hen to work with as this one becomes a slow burn towards the end side.
Yeah, this is really, really interesting. Splash. See Queasy, so many splashes, and they know that they can play the waiting game. Hen will go down and try and do as much damage as he can. And you can see the players below them realizing that they're just going to wait them out. And so they're trying to force the issue. Queasy ultimately on high, just going to sit here and keep it calm. Hen will go down, and that gives the other team his siphon, but Queasy is not going to worry. He's going to just play in the back of the zone, use these splashes all day long. Don't know how he accrued them, but it doesn't matter because they get the victory royale. From Sleepy Sound to this win. Brilliant stuff from them. Chilled on height and closed it out with a heal-off. Something we don't see much of so far this season, but a heal-off in game 2 ain't too bad, Shia.
Yeah, I mean, why didn't Phoenix have any splashes? Where were Marines? Where were all the quick heals? In Queasy's inventory. This man is a thief. He stole them all, and he had them on high ground. 18 splashes, only used 3. Kind of a big flex there for him. But what a game from the high ground team.
Yeah, Queasy and Hen, one of the strongest teams so far this season. They've been in scintillating form as well. And coming out and getting that win is huge for the standings. Can't wait to see what they do with it. But look, we want to see what happened. How did Queasy have so many splashes? We'll toss it over to the desk to break it all down.
18 splashes. Well, apparently they cornered the market on splashes. That was it. We're never going to see another splash in the rest of these remaining games. That's it. It just belongs to them entirely. I'm not even sure how this happened. Maybe it was impact eliminations, right? Maybe they're moving along the mid and low grounds and they're saying, look, if we can find these eliminations, oh, that person has 1? No problem. I have a stack of 1 in my inventory and I'm walking over them, just kind of scooping them all up. But I mean, when you have 18, Reese, I feel like that's going to pretty much be it. As long as you're not making any critical mistakes, you're going to be able to outlive the storm.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, this game, they didn't make the critical mistake that they made in game number 1. They took height at exactly the same time, that second moving zone when it comes to the end game. But in the previous game, game number 1, we saw Reason and Vidil go up, crank up, and unfortunately take that high ground from Hen and Queasy. Well, unfortunately, you know, depending on which way you want to look at it, of course. This game, obviously, they were managed to maintain it all the way from that way up. They managed to keep that high ground and managed to pop off from there on out. Because, look, this is what's ended up happening to Reason and Vidil down below. They're the ones at that moment who can't frag out, can't go up to the high ground because they're being pressured, because they're getting fragged by themselves.
Yeah, I mean, this is also an interesting game to look at. I mean, I don't think we see heal-offs and duos at all, and this is ridiculous, though. 18 chug splashes, there's almost a guaranteed win. And I think this has to do more than likely with the zones. I mean, we had a rocky view zone last game, which means that Vidil and Reason had a very good game, very easy rotation. But this time, it was all the way north, over towards Logjam. And, you know, Hen and Queasy, they land at Sleepy Sound, which means that they have to rotate pretty much, you know, a few hundred meters, and you know, that's what you see. Everyone that gets zoned, they do pretty well, and that makes a lot of sense though, because these are very dangerous rotates. They're high fire rate weapons. You don't have much mobility in the mid game, and if you do get zoned, you're going to be rewarded. And Hen and Queasy, they are not going to give up that opportunity, and that is a free win for them.
Yeah, absolutely not. One of the more like minor things I really want to pick up on though was Phoenix, who you can now see is up in first alongside Raisin. Managed to use that mid miss to get himself from 15th place all the way up to 10th, which is 5 more additional placement thresholds in game, so a bunch more points. And without that, like, they would be behind Cammy and Teak right now. So the mid miss coming in clutch for them. Second place, Cammy and Teak, no surprise at all, fragging out 2 games in a row, being super consistent to get deep into the end games. And our previous game's winner, Hen and Queasy, now in 3rd place. We're in 20th before that, so they've moved up 17 places in the leaderboard. A huge swing in things.
Yep, I mean, Cammy and Teak, I mean, they're up there in eliminations with people. I mean, this is a little bit surprising. We don't expect them to be that aggressive of a duo, but they're up there. 2nd place with 77 points in total. And like I said in my prediction, I mean, these guys are just so consistent. I mean, they got a 3rd place in the first game, 4th place this game. They're here to play. They're ridiculous.
Absolutely. And Phoenix, sorry if we are saying it wrong. If you know, feel free to tweet at us and let us know what the correct is. We're going to just go with Phoenix. Sounds right. Let's shoot. Let's go. Let's go. But you know where else we're going? It's back in a game. We got Shy Wager. We got 11-2K. Friends, over to you.
I mean, I feel like it has to be Phoenix and Ryzen, right? Because Phoenix rises, it's just synergy. It has to be. I mean, that's what I want to stamp on it, at least, Levin. And they're playing phenomenally today.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect anything less from you. I'll be real. Look, let's get right back into it. Let's see if they can do that again and get themselves to remain in first place. We got the third game coming up for you right about now.
Here we go. The halfway point starts now for the EU region in FNCS Chapter 3 Season 1, and we'll see exactly where people end up dropping off. Swilliam, Clement, both on your screen. Both players that have had some struggles in the early game. We asked about redemption before. Now it's just about a desperate retake kind of their destiny in this tournament. Can they really get onto the board, or will they be forever just lost kind of in that top 15, bottom 20?
Yeah, it's interesting. Look, it doesn't seem like Clement had a great job there, but, you know, they still sort of outdropped them. It's interesting that they keep sort of pivoting towards this 50-50. You know, I wonder, right, 3 games in, when will maybe you change your mind on that? Instantly, Floki doing a bit of damage, but receiving some himself as well. So, needs to make sure he doesn't get too overzealous. We saw last game, Swilliam and Letshi, it came down to them just missing some key shots. And I told you that I wouldn't bank on that happening again, so as both teams now will take some time to get their materials up, get their loot up a bit. We may see a bit more of an even fight now play out, but of course you've got to remember that as much as this fight will happen, you also have Kylie and Fastroki on the lurk, looking to try get in and third party whenever that opportunity arises.
Whenever there's like a triangle type of situation, I don't feel like anyone really wins, or it's just so hard to plan for it, right? There's no back and forth. There's no fairness, it feels like, when it's a 3-way fight. Someone always ends up getting the short end of the stick.
Yeah, and I think this is one of those situations that Boop was talking about pre-show where all teams sort of claiming their ground. A fight doesn't necessarily have to break out there. You can maybe just take things a bit slower. Pablo will definitely be wanting to take things slower here because he's taking a bit of damage that who it 1-2. Just north of Logjam, where we are right now. Last game sort of finished in this area, but as we start here, Pablo will hit a nice little shot onto Mirza. Left-hand peek isn't the most optimal angle, but he makes great use of it there. And this is really nice. Looking for some control, making sure that they have the exit control as well on the pieces. And Pablo doing really well with those left-hand shots again. Mirza and Lysen just getting absolutely wrangled there. As Swag will pick up one. And so in a 2v1, Pablo hitting a key shot, but he actually goes down. So now we're down to a 1v1. Mirza's done brilliantly there. Oh dear. Swag, what can he do? All alone. Will he have time to get the res? It seems like it, actually.
This is such a lopsided type fight. Like, not getting a finish on a knockdown player. At the same time, 2v1. Yet one person getting knocked. These things shouldn't be happening. Now that res has to be sticked in. There's no time to get off of it. The 50-50 mind games back and forth. The pickaxe coming in 3 seconds for Swag to stick it through, and Pablo ends up staying alive. This shouldn't even be allowed.
Yeah. I don't know how he's done it. He's gotten the res off. And so Lysen, who was doing a brilliant job to keep his team in this one, now not looking too great. It's a good shot there, but ultimately, with such low HP, Swag and Pablo will deal with him. The Flames boys come away with the win here. And that's exactly what they want coming into game 3. Maybe made it a bit more difficult for themselves, but ultimately, the most important thing is that they win at Osborne.
That's the first few points for them on the board. 6 rolling in. Right now, Mariah and Rifla, I think they're 6th place overall coming into this game. And I'm always doing my double check thing on the side. We can literally just see Team 6 above Rifle's name and fully confirm. I gotta drop the old habits, man. This is so convenient. I love it. And they're still going to be pressuring. This is the one thing I like about teams in the lead. You know, you don't change how you're playing entirely, especially during the midpoint of the competition. We see some inexperienced teams come in, previous FNCSs. They get first overall in the first few games, right, Levin? And then they just change things up entirely, become so much more passive, and they wonder, why did the games change? Where are our points going? Not the same team that got first in the first few games.
Yeah, this is a one of them situations where, you know, you got a lot of these teams who really want to try and make sure that they can replicate the success of former games. As we take a look at some of the replays, over at the Joneses, things going down. Wouldn't expect anything else. Oh, Nixon, that's a nice little shot. We saw this fight just a moment ago. Swag did well, though, to close things out. And that's the story of Osborne fighting in Fortnite, right? You know, it can be so brutal if you're on that losing side.
For game number 3 as well, the checklist for a lot of players, this might be the last time they try a certain strat before going on the back end or to plan B, so things might be even more desperate overall. Maybe this is why Rifle and Marine are really trying to push people around their spot, right? If they win a fight a 3rd time in a row, it might be a signal for the enemy team they're facing to choose a completely different spot, and now they have the back half of the competition bolstered up, an entire POI to themselves, houses, chests they didn't have before to go even further. Foon, though, with a big shot, he's going to stay all the way low ground in the basement.
Yeah, this is nice. You can see Rifle and Marine taking up different positions either side of these two, forcing them to make a decision as they look to pincer in. Some really nice fighting mechanics. They're going to just play it slow though in the meantime. But Marine, been one of the better players as well in this lobby so far. Rifler with him by his side. Now they're just going to choose to dip. Taking a bit too long for their liking. So they'll get away just there. Cafoon will live to see another day.
One thing I'm liking a lot about this new map is the introduction of a lot of spots like this. You know, you might not have named POIs entirely, but you have a lot of base camps set up that have somewhat of, you know, henchman type chests, some buffed up chests at the same time, campfires. You have the spreading of coolers around the map as well as those produce boxes. Lots of ways for people to get their game started if, you know, off spawn doesn't work out too well. I wanted an insight though to Queasy and Hen. You know, Sleepy Sound looking really good for them overall. I feel like anyone that starts off in this spot 11 has such a huge advantage over everyone else.
Yeah, this POI is great, right? They're able to get max materials, a really good chunk of metal at this POI, which can be a problem for some teams. They can leave if they want to with a Whiplash. They're sticking with their truck for the meantime. I'll see if they go get that one. Often leaving with peppers as well, and as you can see, Creasy's got some peppers, plenty of produce boxes over towards the north side of Sleepy. The one thing I will say though, right, if you have watched any of their Cash Cup games, they have often struggled with more southern zones, and as you can see, they are heading to a south zone, so we'll see how our 3rd place team does. Of course, Boop emphasizing in that little break there how just important it is, right, for teams to pull zones, as much as there's plenty of strategy and preparation that goes into it, especially early on in this FNCS. We are seeing that when teams don't pull zones favorable to their POIs, there can be a bit of a struggle there as they try traverse and rotate through, and that's only going to get more difficult in these FNCS lobbies, so we'll see how teams deal with that. This though is one of the zones which probably will encourage teams to go through tilted, right? We talked about how certain zones means that, you know, maybe the tilted players have a bit more time isolated and tilted without any teams interfering. But with this zone, you're going to expect a lot of teams to be coming through here. And our 1st place team is going to be one of them.
Wow, nothing can go wrong if you're just rotating through tilted in first, right? Surely there's not going to be a disaster that happens when you're in one of the hottest spots of the map that everyone has to rotate through. It's very good to stay here for as long as possible and not move out of the POI. Phoenix and Ryzen know exactly what I'm talking about, so quickly they move towards the outskirts. And on the left side as well, wow, I like this shot too. Back down to Rocky Reels. It feels like I'm having deja vu from the first game on how this one goes. And if that's the case, Levin, I mean, Phoenix and Ryzen, it's paradise for them.
Yeah, look, for a lot of those north teams, they will be happy he didn't pull all the way south, right? When you have a zone that pulls that far south for the first zone, typically you would expect it maybe to pull a bit further down, but fortunately it's sort of just plop in the middle there. And so it's a bit more of an even playing field for a lot of the teams around the map. Some technical difficulties there with the vehicle. Things happen.
One thing I'm noticing with Phoenix and Ryzen as well is that they're a very on-guard duo 24/7. A lot of the times when you see a few duos play, they have moments where they let their guard down. They don't maybe build as much. They don't invest too much into where they are. They stay maybe at 75 or 50 shield to see if they can get a siphon or any extra greed along the way. they're on guard a lot, which makes it so that they are a little bit less resourceful the entire time. They might not have, you know, the full inventories you see right now. Their mats might be down entirely, but it feels like playing that ultimate defense 11 is working out really well for them in the first 2 games.
Yeah, and I think, you know, a lot of it will come down to how, you know, they're able to play these zones out and the sort of decision making that they make. But they've done a decent job thus far. Of course, that first game really was sort of the one that's keeping them up in first. Second game was a bit more of a struggle. But for the meantime, they still have options. Like you sort of alluded to, though, it's not perfect right now. They're going to need a refresh. They're going to need to do something to get their materials up. Not many options in terms of farming potential right now around them. And so they're going to have to make some sort of a power play at some point. Maybe they don't need to force the issue now, but 58 builds in Phoenix, just not going to be good enough moving forward.
Yeah, inventory slots down. I feel like before they were also tagging along on high points to many different fights and coming in and cleaning up after the fact. This time they're absolutely low ground. They're surrounded by builds and buildings. It looks like they don't have a say as much in this game. Talk about a say though, Hen, for the moment, is kind of dictating how this lobby gets to play. 8 total elims throughout the day right now. That is a huge number for a, you know, final round type qualifier lobby. That's like something that's not usually common for every player to have. And for him, I mean, you get high ground, what, almost 3 games in a row? It has to be that way, right?
Yeah, and look, when he has Queasy leading the way for him, you know, he's got excellent direction. My biggest fear with this duo, with any duo that Queasy's in, is as much as he's a brilliant mind, will there be enough firepower in the duo for them to be successful? And I think with Hen, there's never any doubts about that. So, look, they're going to have to deal with Surge. Hopefully they don't prove me wrong here, or prove me right, sorry. But you can see the idea behind it right now, realizing that dead side of zone, not going to be many players in this vicinity. If we can take a bit of an isolated fight against Amplify and Flodax, we'll be able to deal with our Surge issues. And this is really nice because they've just taken the whole flank round. And they're actually going to use the builds that Amplify and Flodax put down to pinch their way in. Oh, this is beautiful. Look at the setup. Queasy distracting them. Hen coming from the back, hits 31. Would have wanted a bit more, but this is brilliant. Amplify down. Flodax now left alone. Oh, this is what it's all about right now, Shayo.
This is just ridiculous. I haven't seen a pinch like that. That slow, thought out fundamental since, you know, watching Zayn at Loot Lake just trap teams who just end up landing in, not knowing exactly what they're doing. They make a seasoned veteran like Amplify look absolutely clueless in that circumstance and that aspect. And that is just crazy from Queasy and Hen. They just lock it down. We're talking about trouble with Surge, 367 above now. They're just here to entertain us, Levin. They were not worried for a single moment.
I love it. I love it. You saw the intention there. You saw Hen sneaking up and around. He knew what he was doing. I'm sure we all would have wanted to be in his position, ready to just put your finger on the trigger and let loose. But you can see now, from being below on Surge, 327 above. And it's plays like that, right, that can just really sort of sort you out. But you saw how creative they got and how successful it was in the end. A beautiful play, and now we're going to have to see something beautiful for Horizon and Phoenix. As they just look to take a standard box fight. We all take these, but in these sort of environments, they get really difficult. 43 above, but they won't be satisfied, and so they'll see if they can do a bit more damage. They can hear the other players looking to use shields, so they know they're low. There is a bit of a ticking time bomb there.
Specifically, though, right now, even if you take into account Surge, you take into account their health bar, it kind of looks like the main issue for them is a health bar you guys can't really see, or doesn't look like one at the moment. It's their resources overall. Missing a few inventory slots. We tuned out with them. They had about 58 total builds on Phoenix. Now it's down to 38. So they are dwindling on that aspect fast. And you could be 100, 100. You could be 700 and 700 shields and health even, right? But if you don't have materials, if you don't have weapons to clap back, ammunition, shields, it doesn't matter. The lobby will eat you alive. So those mats, very important. And now Phoenix will start to run away. Ryzen actually leading everything. If they get to this building, they can't farm everything out supremely. The metal will be everlasting, kind of. There's not much really to find inside except for a few vending machines or boxes you can get maybe +4, +5 from. They'll be able to get their, you know, their wooden brick topped off completely. Vortex and Genesis actually being taken out by DKS in the air almost. It looked like maybe a Spider-Man mishap, and it's Cammy and Teak that get the loot from them, which is crazy. Is that a Mythic MK7?
Yes, it is. You know, they're able to claim that from their POI. The boys talked about on the pre-show. And they put it to good use as well. We talked about how they've done a decent job of being able to get some elimination so far in this game, 6 and 3 respectively. So yeah, not the mythic, but still, you know, they're going to put that to great use. It's funny because where they are on the map, they basically just haven't had to move basically the whole game, right? This is sort of the general area of their split. So you look at some of the things you missed. Kiriachi here, doing well to hold off with the stare. Stormy Rat picks up an elimination as well. Those two, talk about firepower, they have it all.
I felt like I was watching like a trash compactor though, you know what I mean? That was kind of messy in terms of builds. Are on low ground, armored walls all around them. Even though they're lethal, they're a full fire force. I feel like a lot of the fights we're starting to watch in like game 3, maybe even game 4, might be a little bit too desperate, not as organized. But then also, we saw the Hen and Queasy pinch breakdown. That was just great. Definitely some teams still in control. Kiriachi needs to find some med mist, a med kit, something somewhere, because they're going to either have to fly. It looks like no, for now, just run into a zone. It might just be about 50, 60 meters overall, but with, what, 10, 20 teams around them, even one little mishap will just have that HP bar deleted.
Yeah, this is going to get rough for them. They've been pretty consistent thus far, sitting in 6th place, as you can see, so they'll want to keep that up. But like you said, it's going to be an uphill battle again, right? We keep emphasizing this, but you know, this game is all about resource management to a degree, and so when you don't have those resources, all you got to do is, all you're spending your time thinking about, I should say, is how you can get them and how you can put yourself in a position to be able to make it through some of the more difficult zones towards the end of the game.
We keep saying uphill battle. When does the downhill start? Is it even a hill that we're talking about right now? Because it just seems like some of these teams never get to enjoy the, you know, wee part of the roller coaster when you're going down. They're just going up forever.
You gon' need 3 promoters. I got the body from Jim Ellis, but I had switched the motor.